Recorded live from the mats of Radical MMA in New York City. The Martial Culture Podcast. Your source for in-depth combat sports and martial arts insights with Coach Rene and Matt Peters. Ring the bell and let's get it on.
I can't do it today. I'm still full of turkey. Hi, Rene. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. I'm great. I have to agree with you, man. You know, you're supposed to like have a discipline and control over your passions and your impulses. But Thanksgiving is like, I will overeat because this is so delicious.
Everybody that came to my mom's house for Thanksgiving brought a pie. So I had like 7 pieces of pie.
You know,
not in one day.
I like the dessert of Thanksgiving, of course, and I had some, but it was really like the turkey and the stuffing and all the fixings of the Thanksgiving table that make it so. And you know, it's not just that it tastes good; it has this nostalgia effect.
Yeah,
I eat turkey with cranberry, and I'm transported to being 5 years old again. You know, something so. It just brings you to a mental state of such that's so pleasant, you know.
Yeah.
So and you want that feeling more, and then you just wind up, you know, getting soaked on tryptophan and sitting on the couch and be like, I don't want to move.
My brother has a 18-month-old, and so she was there running around like a 18-month-old does, and we're all just sitting on the couch, just trying to get rid of the drugs that we just took, and she's just running around looking for somebody to play with, and there's no other kids, so it's just an 18-month-old playing with plastic bags and, you know, all by herself. I don't know. She's fine. She's okay.
Reminds me of the 70s parenting style. You know, whatever.
Here's a bag of glass and a bunch of nails.
Yeah. Go knock yourself out. Yeah, exactly.
No, my brother and his wife are very good parents. No plastic bags were used.
That's your brother-in-law? You mean who's on the show? Oh, your brother.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to Ohio for the wrestler brother.
Right.
For Christmas.
He's also tell him I say hi.
I will. He listens every week. So
he does.
Tell him you said hi yourself.
Hello there.
So there was a lot of stuff that happened over the last week.
Last 2 weeks.
We've been gone for a week.
Yeah.
For the holidays.
And it was amazing. There was the two UFC fight nights. There was Magny versus Ponzinibbio, and then there was UFC fight night Blades versus Ngannou, and some really great fights. Okay, so it's interesting because like especially the Magny versus Ponzinibbio, but this Ngannou too. It's like that they're these fights that are not pay-per-view and people don't necessarily watch them. Although it was very hard to watch the Blades one because that was only on Fight Pass. It wasn't on my TV. But the UFC fight in Magny Ponzinibbio, man, if you had paid for that, you'd have been like, oh my God, that was money well spent.
Wow.
Every single fight was just, oh my God, these people come to fight. And there's a new generation of fighters from all over the world. And you could see with the latest one, tons of fighters coming out of Asia that were just amazing. But there was a few fights. One of them was in the Magny Ponzinibbio fight. It was Marlon Vera versus Guido Canetti. Oh my God. You know, I said this once in another podcast. There's a perfect word for this. It's a slobber knocker.
Yeah,
you know, like they're just like, oh my God, it was like back and forth, just crushing each other. And Canetti was a bit more dominant in the second round, but he hit he hits Guido with but then Marlon Vera hits Guido with a flying knee and an uppercut, and it just then Guido doesn't go down. He comes back, then he gets mounted, but then he gets his back taken and is choked out with the RNC. But it was just like it was unbelievable. Every single fight was there was Lamas versus Elkins, which was an amazing match. If anybody can see it on the replay, I guys should look it up. It was beautiful display of jiu-jitsu. There was Elkins comes in like a truck, but you could see how Lamas was just a little bit more of little bit more tactical, like thoughtful, and he slowed him down with kicks, particularly a kick that is becoming very, very popular in MMA right now, which I absolutely believe in, is the very, very low calf kick. So you're kicking not to the thigh, which most Muay Thai guys, not to the knee. You're kicking to the lower part of the calf, and it just slows the guy down. It slows the guy down, and it was. There was Lamas just chipped him away, and then
there weren't many fights that went to decision. So
yeah, no,
it
was amazing. It was it was just amazing. And then the same thing with the Ponzinibbio Magny fight. It was absolute, amazing leg destruction from Ponzinibbio. If you have a guy who's a great wrestler, or if a guy who's a great striker, if you take their legs away, if you really destroy their ability to move their legs, they can't do anything. And Ponzinibbio's understanding of range was just breathtaking. And then there's a big right hand, and Magny just goes down. It was amazing. One thing happened in the Ponzinibbio fight, which I always talk about, and people were interested in MMA. MMA does not allow headbutts, but Magny hit Ponzinibbio with a headbutt that could have changed the fight. He really damaged Ponzinibbio's eye with a vicious headbutt. Intentional? I don't know. And when I say I don't know, I really don't know because I'm not in his head, but it was part of the combination. There's never been a penalty and never been a disqualification for a headbutt in the UFC. And people use them all the time. There was one fight also where a really bad cut opened up from a headbutt. I forgot what it was recently. But this could have changed the nature of the fight. But it didn't. And Ponzinibbio came back, even with a very, very damaged eye, came back and took out Magny's legs and then won the fight. It was great. It was that fight. It was Khalil Roundtree versus Johnny Walker. And Khalil Roundtree is a guy that when I first saw him in the Ultimate Fighter, I was not so impressed. He was okay, and he is maturing into a great fighter. Unfortunately, Johnny Walker was just too much for him, and he hit him with this precise elbow that just finished him. There was Cesar Ferreira versus Heinisch, and that was a real grinder of a fight. I told you about Marvera. Now, one fight I have to talk about. In this podcast, we mentioned what's his name? The airbender. What's his name?
Oh crap!
Yeah. Who we always like. What's his name? Shoot. We called him out before anybody was like, talking about him. We said this guy is going to be it, and he's shown it, be really amazing. He had a great fight recently, and now I want to say there's a female fight. Oh, what's his name? It's Israel Adesanya. Right. So I have to say that the minute I saw Adesanya's first fight, I was like, I think Adesanya is going to be in the division crazy, and he is, and people said, oh, he hasn't been tested. Every time he's tested, he comes out and he wins. He does great. But I'm telling you, Calvillo versus Botelho. This was a fight. It was a female fighter. We're going to be talking about Calvillo a year from now, 2 years from now. This girl, she had a great performance, which I mentioned maybe 4, 5, 6 podcasts ago. Oh my God, this girl is just something else. She just took Botelho to another deep waters, and she caught a kick, dragged her to the ground, just unbelievable, utter domination from the ground. Side control strikes open up this girl's face like crazy. There's blood, and then the girl gave up her back, and she sunk in a bulldog choke, turned into a rear naked choke, and just finished the fight. And it was just pop, 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 pop. It was amazing. And I was just really impressed. She is going to be in the mix in the female division coming forward, no question about it.
She missed weight at the weigh-in, though?
Oh, she
By
missed
2
weight.
pounds.
Oh man, I by 2 pounds. That sucks. Well, she should do that UFC. They have this UFC fight. The nutritionists that they get any UFC fighters able to go to their camp and do nutrition. She should probably do that.
She should do the Daniel Cormier weight cut method, push down on a towel.
That was dirty. I remember that. That was really, really dirty. It was really crazy. Well, another great aspect of that fight. I won't talk too much about it anymore. But Sasaki Ulka is a Japanese fighter, Uruka Sasaki, and he fought Pantoja, who was or Pantoja. He's Brazilian. Pantoja did a flying armbar to an arm lock to a leg lock to a back take to a finish, and I'm like,
what?
It was like
I
was
can't
sitting
even
there,
follow
I'm like, jiu-jitsu! It was unbelievable. And Pantoja has still a way to go because he has some flaws in his game, but the minute he goes on the ground, this kid is unbelievable. He did a flying armbar, and it kind of looked like he was taken out, but he wasn't. He did a flying armbar to an arm, and then he turned it from that to an arm lock attacks sequence. He turned it to a leg lock attack, from the leg lock, he turned it to a back take and just took his back. And it was all within like 7 seconds. It was like, and Uruka was just totally outclassed. But Uruka's he's doing better. He moved his camp to Weidman, to Saralongo camp here, and which is something I want to talk about. A lot of Japanese fighters and Asian fighters are moving over and working in the States. And he's improving, but that guy was on another level, and he's outclassed. Then it comes down to so that was that Magny Puzznibio. That was a great card, and then there was Blades versus Ngannou, and one of the things I just want to talk about the couple of the highlight fights. We don't have to go too in it, but one of the things was interesting is this card was packed with Asian talent, and
it was in China, right? It was in
it was it was in Macau. No, it was Beijing. It was in Beijing.
Yeah,
wow,
Beijing.
It was in Beijing.
Cadillac
wow.
Arena.
Yeah, I don't know. Cadillac Arena.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Is that Cadillac Arena?
I
didn't know there was a Cadillac Arena in Beijing. But it was filled with up-and-coming Asian talent. And there's some of these guys are really good. There was this fighter, this female fighter. And, she's just something else, Ping Yuan Liu. And this girl, she's technically, a lot of these Chinese fighters, technically they have a little bit way to go, but they're on the right track and they're really growing. They won't be dominant for a bit. They won't. They're not at that level yet. But you see the scene growing and the Asian MMA really growing. And there's also the ONE FC. I don't know if you know ONE FC. Chris Robinson was talking about it. They had Ed Foliang fight the championship recently, and the Filipino fighters are also just crushing it. And it's nice to see MMA growing in Asia, like really growing. People don't realize that Shevchenko, she fights out of Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand. So Thailand's very anti-MMA at this point because they like their Thai boxing. Mm-hmm. But it's changing. And every country, step by step, is just absorbing MMA like America did. And China is very resistant to MMA because of their cultural heritage. And Chinese kung fu guys don't do well in MMA. They traditional guys. So it's like kind of like slightly embarrassing. And I mean, we talked about, when the MMA guy beat up the Tai Chi master, so-called Tai Chi master, and then the Xi Jinping, the premier, the head of China. I mean, it's like Donald Trump talking about a MMA match. I guess that's not so far-fetched now that I think about it.
I'm pretty sure he has.
Yeah. but he commented that, MMA is like bad and made these guys have no honor. And, so there's a lot of pushback, but it is growing in China, and it won't stop. Especially they're drawing from the Sanda practitioners who are Chinese kickboxing, and these people are really they're getting good. And I mean, this guy Weiling Zhang took out Jessica Aguilar. Ping Yuan Liu took out Martin Day. The Xiaonan Yang, she took out Shiori Kondo, and you see. They're coming. The Chinese MMA is growing, and it's nice to see that they're growing. Now, the two main fights, though, we could talk about was Alistair Overeem versus Sergey Pavlov, and Overeem is back. the ream.
We'll see if the tests come back negative, right?
Yeah, probably not.
I was
No,
glad
but
to see
it was
him back,
just
though.
horse meat he was eating.
Sure. IKEA meatballs, I think.
Give me balls. But he had a very dominant performance. And then Francis Ngannou versus Curtis Blades. I'm gonna say something. I really thought Blades was gonna take it because I felt Ngannou had mentally crumbled. I think I said it on another podcast.
Yeah, we've talked about that before.
I think he was mentally crumbled, and it just he got his mind straight. He came back, and he hit Curtis Blades.
Yeah.
And he hit him in the back of the head.
Didn't make a full contact either. But
No,
it was
no.
like solely.
No, it was interesting because it didn't hit him in the chin. It didn't hit him in the temple. But, a lot of the guys would reach. They're throwing these big overhands that hit the back of the head. And let me tell you, hitting the back of the head is very effective in MMA. I saw Randy Couture get dropped like that. A lot of fighters get dropped like that. They're used to defending with boxing gloves. First of all, you can't hit the back of the head so well with the big boxing glove, but MMA glove you can. The second, guys, when you're wearing boxing gloves, you can kind of defend that because the boxing glove is so big. You don't have to bring your hand all the way back. And a lot of guys are I think not training with MMA gloves as much as they should, and they're eating that shot. And you could see it just connected to the back of his head. It didn't even look like much, but it really dropped him. Of course, it's heavyweight, so heavyweight guy punches you anywhere, it's going to hurt. But the back of the head is the medulla oblongata, and below that is the pons and the cerebellum. These are areas you don't want to get hit. And they and then he battered him on the ground. So it's interesting. One of the things I really like to see, and the pre-fight videos is something I watch all the time. The Shevchenko training, most MMA fighters, unless they're hitting pads, are now sparring with MMA gloves. And they're sparring light because, of course, they can hurt each other. But most of the time they spar in MMA gloves because when they're working their defense, they get an artificial sense of protection when they fight in boxing gloves. And so you can see the only guy that's still training boxing gloves that I've seen is actually Daniel Cormier.
Why would they train in boxing gloves? That's not a real...
Right, because of protection. I think they're thinking of the head trauma.
Oh, okay.
I totally understand that. But because you can't just tee off on each other, AKA style. If you're not wearing boxing gloves, this is too dangerous. MMA gloves, it's like you're going to get really hurt. Yeah. But what happens is they start training, but they train a little lighter, but they train more in boxing gloves. Daniel Cormier, as I heard, even he said he likes to drop his training partners in training. I think his training partner's like, I'm not going to go into your camp unless you put some boxing gloves on. But for defense, if you're working defense, you have to train in the context you're going to fight in, which is MMA gloves.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, and also, I think you can see people. I know in our camp, we're always talking about headbutts and how headbutts can change the game, and how people are sneaking in those headbutts as a tactical way to damage your opponent, get a cut, or to shut his eye, and you have to start training the headbutt defense as well. And when you block a little higher, you don't have to worry as much about headbutts. When you block boxing style, you have to worry about headbutts. And obviously, the ground and pound headbutt is not, the referee will call that, but they're just being very sneaky. They're grinding it up. They're not cocking their head backs and throwing their head in. What they're doing is they're making it look like a shot, and then and then just short popping the head. Very, very effective.
Is there a fight promotion that allows headbutts?
Well, there's Lathwai in Burma, which is Burmese Thai boxing. So basically, Thai boxing doesn't allow headbutts, but Lathwai does. I posted a video of it on our Facebook page, but it's basically what they call the art of 9 limbs. So the art of 8 limbs is Muay Thai, which is fists, elbows, knees, and feet. So that's 8 limbs, right? And the 9 limbs is the head. The 9th is the head, where you can add headbutts, and it does change the game. There's a way you have to fight. Just like bare knuckle changes the game, adding headbutts changes the game.
Do you train that at Radical?
All the time.
So
I'm the headbutt king.
How to best headbutt without hurting yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's a real technique. And I was very lucky to have trained first under guys in Japan who were very much into that style of self-defense, and guys who actually, one of them had actually been to Burma and trained that, but other guys who just bring part of their style. The kudo karate, which is knockdown karate it's like basically MMA karate. They wear these big bubble masks so they allow headbutting because it's just your headgear versus my headgear, so nobody gets cut. So the Kudo or Daidojuku Karate, which is this MMA karate style in Japan, allows headbutts. They allow pretty much every strike imaginable. And so I was lucky to train with some people from that background. And also I just took the headbutts generally. And I
as a child, I used to headbutt my mother.
That's why I'm so brain damaged. No, but the way you headbutt to not hurt yourself is very important.
Yeah.
And just cocking back and jamming your head against someone's eyebrow with your eyebrow is not the way to do it. You use the hardest part of your head in very tactical ways against very weak parts of their
What's
head.
the hardest part of my head?
Well, think you like devil horns.
Okay.
Those spots, those two areas right there are extremely hard. The weakest part being the center of your head, which is, because as a baby, your head is not connected.
What's the deal with that? That's weird.
Yeah, well, I think it's because to be
Evolution,
born.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, to be
you
born.
have to fit out of the
Sure.
uterus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a small opening.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. But anyway, it was a huge night of fights. Amazing. And then, of course, Nagano won and Overeem won. And they're back, and so it's nice to see the heavyweight division, some people back in the mix.
Yeah,
I felt bad for Curtis Blades. I was kind of like him, but his striking needs a lot of work too. He's not the best striker yet. He needs to go back on the drawing board and get a little better.
So where does Nagano go next?
I don't know. He said that he wants to fight Overeem, or Overeem said they're probably going to fight each other again, and Overeem was like, "Oh, it's going to go different this time." I think they have to fight, and the winner of that fight goes on to maybe another title shot
Against Cormier.
Yeah. But I think Cormier would take both of them.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, he's yeah, it's hard, but I think he would take it's particularly Nagano. I think Nagano doesn't have an answer for Cormier's wrestling.
Now, when Cormier loses to John Jones in December, doesn't Cormier vacate the heavyweight title?
He's gonna have to vacate one. Yeah, that's what they said, unless he defends it. Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that
they were
works.
supposed to vacate him of the light title.
'Cause he's gonna defend it
he's defend it, but I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't really follow that side, But I one thing I respect about the UFC, and they put on a great product and they make the top guys fight the top guys, all the time. And if you don't fight the top guys right away, you're not defending right away, you get the belt taken away from you, and that's just great. And you don't see that as much in boxing or anything like that. Kind of a joke now. People avoid each other. Like in the UFC, if you try to avoid someone, then you then you get your belt taken away. But it was a great night of fights, and it's nice to see a card of people from Asia. Really, really, trying to just I see Asian MMA growing again. When I was growing up, Japan was more the home of MMA for a little while than America was, because we banned America. The UFC was basically banned everywhere, and it was you couldn't get it, so everybody's watching Pride, and it was huge in Japan. It was amazing, and Japanese had some great fighters for the time, and then it just completely died out of Japan, and there was nowhere else in Asia where it was really big.
Yakuza, right? Yakuza.
Yeah, it was a lot of things. That's a great question. There was Yakuza ties, so they got taken off TV. But I don't think that's the only reason. I'm thinking about this, but why did MMA in Japan die? And it hasn't recovered. And most of the top Japanese fighters right now, they train abroad. And if they want to get good, they train abroad. And like we were talking about Sasaki Urka, he's training here in New York. So is Mizuki, she's a Japanese female fighter. There's a lot of Japanese fighters that train abroad, and why do they not get the training in Japan? And then you can see this. Look at what's going on in the Philippines. There's a team called Team Lakay, and they are producing really good talent. The Philippines is coming out with some great talent, and one of the reasons I believe is because people from different styles cooperate with each other more. So in the ONE FC promotion, I think they encourage that because the owner of the ONE FC also owns a bunch of gyms in Singapore where he hires like the top of the top Muay Thai fighters, and then he brings in the top of the top jiu-jitsu fighters, and he brings in top wrestlers. So he can afford to bring these guys in and make them work with everybody. So that's one reason. But you can't say it's the same about Philippines because this gym, Team Lakay, in the Philippines is this tiny gym in the middle of nowhere. But what they do is they send their fighters to train with actually one of my friends, John Balin, who was he was an Olympian in judo, but he's also an amazing jiu-jitsu fighter. So they send him to train here, they train there, and you can see that they're drawing on a lot of knowledge from what the best guys in the Philippines. And there's some really good guys, some really good boxers, so they're putting it together. You could see the Filipino fighters coming together and working with each other. In Japan, I think one of the reasons why Japan MMA isn't where it's supposed to be is because while Japan has a lot of knowledge in martial arts, if you go to the top judo guys in Japan, they are amazing. You go to the top, some of the top strikers in Japan, they're amazing, but they don't work together. They're like, I'm over here in my karate world. I'm over here in my judo world. I'm over here in this world. And nobody works together. And the jiu-jitsu world in Japan, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu world, not the traditional jiu-jitsu, but Brazilian jiu-jitsu world in Japan is pretty big now. Like Brazilian jiu-jitsu is pretty well practiced, and there's some really good guys. But, I don't follow it so well. My wife follows it a little bit more. But she was saying that there's a lot of tension or disdain from the Brazilian jiu-jitsu world to the MMA world or even the no-gi world. So there's guys who compete in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They're like, oh, we're gi, and we don't do no-gi. And it's changing, but then there's the guys who do no-gi or the guys who do MMA, and they're all kind of separate, and they don't work together as much. And, you see this in America. Like, you go to any major camp, and you see a huge pool of talent in the instruction from lots of different styles. Whether it's like, Team Alpha Male, where you have, they brought in Dwayne Ludwig for a while. They brought in this guy. They brought in that guy. Whether it's Jackson Wink, whether it's the American Top Team, what these amazing teams, they're successful because they bring in, AKA as well. They bring in so many good guys. AKA brought in the Vieira brothers, Leo Vieira, who's jiu-jitsu phenom, and his brother Rico, to add in that jiu-jitsu element. Of course, they have the takedown element from Daniel Cormier as a fighter, but they have great takedown coaches, and they have Javier Mendez, who's a great striker, and a lot of other great striking instructors too. So they have a tremendous amount of knowledge on one mat, and everybody's working together. And you know what, AK guys, and you can see there's a Luke Rockhold, they're not afraid to send him abroad because you remember he worked in Florida, and with Anthony Hardunk. You went to another gym for a while. They're like, hey, you go over to the gym, you learn something, come back, and we're cool with it. Bring that knowledge back.
Why is the Japanese afraid of that?
I don't know.
That's a good question.
It's what I think it is. Also, it's like the Japanese martial arts world was always fractured like that. Like karate guys were karate guys, and kickboxers were kickboxers, and these guys were these guys, and they just don't work together. Everybody's like kind of comfortable in their own little.
Maybe Japan's too safe, and they don't feel like they have to train multiple styles. They're not getting attacked on the streets.
It's funny you should say that. Okay, because you're right. You're right that the population of people interested in martial arts is an issue, and I want to talk about that because I would talk about wrestling. So I just listened to this podcast to this wrestler, and he's like, the difference between what America wrestles. One of the reasons why America wrestles so well is because they got the numbers. He's like, America's a huge country with a huge pool of wrestlers. So you just have bodies. Like you go into a wrestling room, any big wrestling room in any big university, and there's like 100 guys there to train with. And he's like, yeah, this guy was from Canada, and he was like, yeah, we just didn't have that kind of bench. And because Japan is a safe country, there's not as much interest on the functional martial arts as there is on the cultural martial arts. Cultural martial arts, not really fighting. You do it because it's fun. You lose some weight, blah, blah, blah. There's not as much interest in the functional martial arts, so you'd have less of a population. But the MMA boom at one point changed that. So the MMA boom in the 90s brought a lot of people to the functional martial arts because it was cool. It was just a cool thing to do. Like soccer was cool, but MMA was cool. Now MMA is not so cool anymore. And so the population is an issue. But I think it goes back to also like, I was talking about the Kudo karate, right? Let me tell you the story. This was back in the 70s. So this guy studied Kyokushin karate. His name was Azuma, right? Master Azuma. And Azuma studied karate, but he'd also studied judo before that. So the head of Kyokushin karate, who he was training under, was Masayama. Masayama is a very famous guy. He killed a bull with his bare hands, and he's the head of the Kyokushin organization. He's revered in martial arts circles. Mm-hmm. So he says to Oyama, he says, Master Oyama, what you're doing with karate is amazing, but judo's pretty cool too. We should combine them. And you know what Oyama says? He said, get the fuck out of my organization. And he bans him. He hamon, which is banishment.
What?
So his answer to like mixing styles is like, get the hell out of here. And so I think there's an element of just hidebound closed-mindedness in the Japanese martial art cultures. The other side is that, like, I'll tell you personally, when I was training judo, I had a judo instructor, and he hated MMA. He absolutely hated it. And I'm like, I can't believe this. I was like, and I revere him. His name was Sensei Hirata. He was a ground fighting master, and he was one of the great human beings. But he was doing judo culturally, but sportively, because he didn't believe. He said MMA was too violent, and he says it's not good for the country. And you're dealing with Japan had experienced a lot of violence. They perpetrated a lot of violence in World War II. And so there's a pacifistic part of Japanese culture that says we don't want to do that again. So let's use martial arts as a path for self-cultivation and not so much as a path to explore violence and fighting. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of martial artists who are really good, don't in their own worlds don't like to go into MMA because they're like, especially the older generation, they're like, this is too violent. Let's it's not good for kids. This is not a good, thing for role models. I want my kids to do judo and be sportsmen and things like that. And I get that too, but it's a shame because the balkanization of the martial arts world in Japan is making it not be effective. And I guess America was like that in the 80s before the UFC. And that's why, you saw single style fighters for a while, but then everybody's like, okay, let's mix. And I talked about this, the last fight, the biggest fight in the UFC 25 history where you could see every single MMA element that was the turning point was Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz. And you saw every element of fighting. And that was like when everybody's like, okay, we're going to change everything. We're going to change jiu-jitsu. We're going to change wrestling. We're going to train, Muay Thai. We're going to train boxing. And we're going to create, hybrid styles of all of us working together. Mm-hmm. And we're going to cooperate. And that's interesting. And, that's one of the reasons why I have spoken to Professor Ken. I don't know everything. And Professor Ken is a genius in what he does. It's a striking master for the guys who don't finish the podcast. And he and I are working together. And I want to draw from, we had a seminar with Samat Payakarun, who's the best Muay Thai fighter ever. And, we had recently a Greco-Roman seminar, and the idea is to bring knowledge, as much knowledge into my academy as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. I'm like the curator, and there's some things, that I'm like, I don't like that. So I'm curating in the sense that, you can't just bring everything because some things don't work. So you have to scientifically test, and then and evolve, right? But anyway, that's why I think MMA in Japan is not recovering, but the idea of the population issue is a big issue because it's not a dangerous place, but I think it's also the separation of styles and their lack of cooperation,
We need a Japanese Conor McGregor to incite the masses.
Right. You do. And you're right. And Sakuraba was that guy for a while. Mm-hmm. He was the Japanese Conor McGregor for a while, and he was cool. And, but we'll see. Maybe he'll come back.
Interesting.
Yeah. But speaking of Tito Ortiz, did you hear that Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell had a fight again?
They had that already?
Yeah, it was day before yesterday.
That?
It was awful. It was just awful.
Did they bring their wheelchairs into the ring?
Tito Ortiz actually looked pretty good. Chuck Liddell did not. Chuck Liddell was like awful.
Chuck Liddell has not looked good for a long time.
Right, and he just got dropped by Tito Ortiz and like it was nothing, like a sack of potatoes.
Was it early?
Yeah, it was pretty early. It wasn't even competitive, and he just got dropped. And he couldn't move. He was sluggish, and Tito Ortiz looked pretty good though. You know, like he had his neck surgery, so he's actually he looks pretty good. You know, he is. You know, he fought like about a year ago, right? So it's not like he's been out of the ring for a while.
Where'd they fight in?
This is the promotion. It was a boxing promotion, Golden Boy Promotions. It was Oscar De La Hoya. He created his own promotion. Yeah, but it just shows, you know, like the boxers have very little care for fighter health, and it's sad because Chuck Liddell should not be fighting. And Dana White said, you'll never fight in the UFC again because you're not supposed to fight because I care about you. He's like, you're my friend. And Oscar De La Hoya is like, okay, I don't give a crap.
Has he got money problems? Why is he fighting you?
No, I think it's just that ego. You know what we talked about in the podcast?
It's hard for a fighter to retire.
Hard, yeah, it's hard to retire.
Chuck Liddell is apparently calling out John Jones.
Oh, my God.
John Jones says no.
Not after this fight.
Oh
I think that call out was before that because he just looked terrible.
Oh my gosh! All right, what's coming up next? We still have the John Jones fight to look forward to.
Yeah, and oh my God, there's so much coming up. It's really exciting. So this weekend, or no, 2 weeks is the Ortega fight.
Oh yeah!
Oh my God, I really can't wait for that one.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. And then the Shevchenko fight, and it's just so many coming up. So, yeah, Holloway Ortega is coming up, and then there's Jones Gustafsson, and so many coming up. That's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing, unbelievable.
Dos Santos?
Yeah, that's not so amazing. But I can't wait for Shevchenko versus Djurdjic, and
Mark Hunt's back.
Mark Hunt is back. Oh man, he should go away.
Coming up,
yeah,
but
yeah,
this week.
Alaquinta is fighting Kevin Lee. That's a good fight too.
Oh yeah, Kevin Lee is amazing.
Yeah, and we'll see, which guy is ready to go. And Rafael this weekend also is the Ultimate Fighter finale. Rafael dos Anjos versus Kamaru Usman. That's an interesting fight. That's a really interesting fight, and I'm going to watch that. So it should be. We'll talk about it next week.
Where's that on? Is that on the Fight Pass?
That is it's on TV, I think.
Oh, we love TV.
We love TV. It's the Ultimate Fighter finale.
I haven't watched any of the seasons this year. Would I be lost if I watched it?
Nah, don't watch it. It's actually the ultimate. This Ultimate Fighter. Technically, it's not that good.
No,
not that good. No, really not.
Oh my gosh,
really
Ortega, Holloway, Shevchenko, Djurdjic. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be such a
huge fight. But so anyway, so that's what's going on. It's nice to see. It's nice to see MMA really grow in Asia again.
It's a really confusing notion, and I don't know if this may sound ignorant, but to have MMA be so, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it more in depth, but MMA be not very big in Asian communities. When I think of martial arts, immediately I think of Japan and China.
Right. Or Korea too, right? Yeah. I mean, and martial arts are
because
all over
Asia. Because they're so siloed in their different disciplines.
Right. And I mean, it's also like when you're that siloed. So this is what's happening in jiu-jitsu. It's happening in jiu-jitsu now. So like you get siloed into your discipline. Then you go to a point where it stops working in MMA because you get so into your little discipline, because you get so into the little like details of your interpersonal game and your rule set, like Taekwondo, like modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Then you go into MMA and you get the shit kicked out of you, and you're like, I don't want to do that again. Oh, and then you make an excuse. Oh, MMA sucks. So that's like that happens a lot. We're like, well, why am I going to support a rule set where I look bad? Let's say like kung fu guys, like the first thing, like MMA fighters, Krav Maga guys too. Like MMA fighters, it doesn't work on the street. The street's different. MMA is different from the street. So they just badmouth because they look bad in it. So if you're a Taekwondo guy, and obviously certain elements of Taekwondo work in MMA, but Taekwondo as it's trained for Taekwondo competition is not a good preparation for MMA. First of all, you have to work together with other styles. Second, you have to change what you do a lot. And that's just a fact. It's just a fact, Same with boxing. You have to change the way you box for MMA because it's different, especially Mayweather. Like, if you play a Mayweather kind of Philly shell style, you're going to have to change a lot. And you do a lot of bobbing and weaving. You get kicked in the face. You can kick your leg kicked. You can leg chopped out. Modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is shying away from MMA because a lot of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners are not doing well unless they really adapt. But so what it does is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, then they make an excuse and they're like, oh, MMA, the rules are against Jiu-Jitsu too much. Oh, it's not we don't have to do this, blah, 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 blah. And then they just go back into their style where they feel, they're a little turtle going back into their shell, and it's instead of evolving. Mm-hmm. But, let me tell you, MMA is hard. It may come as a shock to you, Matt, but MMA is hard. And it's not fun to get punched in the face. Mm. So would you rather train at a lower level of intensity every day? Yeah, probably, because it fucking sucks to get the shit kicked out of you. But you have to see the value in that. You have to see the value in that lesson of humility. Oh my God. Okay. So instead of doing this, I'm going to evolve and learn. But we're all human beings, and that's a hard choice to make. That's hard to say, the way I've been doing it up till now is not enough. Let me evolve. Mm-hmm. Let me grow. That's hard. It's a hard thing to say, but we all have to say it. And that's the key to dropping that ego and moving along.
It's got to be hard if you're at the top of your game in, say, judo.
Right.
And then you go and you're like, I'm going to fight MMA, and you lose.
Totally. It really sucks. Especially, when, what's really hard is when you have like a number one move that you do in your style, and then you're like, oh, that will never work over here. Mm. And you're like, what?
I'm not going over there.
Yeah, I'm not going over there. Right? And that happened with me because I used to do in judo, I used to do a thing called a fireman's carry throw. And you can adjust it. Like I've since learned how to adapt it for MMA, but you very rarely see it. What a fireman's carry is? I put my hand between the guy's leg and I pick him up and throw him. But you rarely see it in MMA. It's not a top throw. Because there's two things that can happen. If you screw it up, you get kicked in the face. And you have nothing blocking you. So that's bad. Mm. You're going to get, major rhinoplasty courtesy of someone's knee. And the second is if you put it there, you can actually put yourself in what we call a crucifix position, where your arm gets stuck between his legs and the guy just has to punch you in the face. So generally speaking, like a fireman's carry is not a high level move in MMA, but when I was judo, they've since made fireman's carry legal. But when I would just fireman's carry people all day in judo. I was like my favorite throw, one of my favorite throws. And then going into MMA, I'm like, oh. I remember this happened to me in Brazil. So I was training in Brazil. I was training with this guy named Sorriso, right? And I tried a fireman's carry on him, right? And he let me throw him once. He's like, because he was teaching me, right? And he's like, that's really not going to work like that in a real fight, or just in jiu-jitsu. You have to be careful. I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. I mean, I was a little like, yeah, whatever, dude. And then he goes, just watch. Okay, I tried again, and he locks my arms up. I can't move at all. I'm stuck. I'm just pinned. And he starts tickling my ear. And he goes, you started tickling my ear. He's like, you see, I told you it wouldn't work. And he held me there for like a minute. And I was like, motherfucker. And then and then he took me out. And I was like, okay, I believe you now. Wow. And it's a tough pill to swallow when your best move, not only a move, but your best moves are just have to be discarded. But MMA is MMA. It's unflinchingly real and unflinchingly a blow to your ego every day. Like today, I was sparring a little today, and I have a little injury, but I did one thing, and one of my white belt students kind of countered it. I'm like, man, I got to work on this a little more. This guy James, he just countered my move. That's not supposed to happen. Oh, I got to get a little sharper, So that's that blow to your ego is going to happen all the time, and you have to adjust to it. Getting stuck in those silos is not the way to go. We talked about this in another podcast before, but You have to cooperate and you have to grow and you have to break the divisions between the styles. And a lot of that is ego. A lot of it's tradition. A lot of it's just not wanting to get punched in the face too because it sucks. But you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. Fighting is not taekwondo. Fighting is not boxing. Fighting is not jiu-jitsu. Fighting is not wrestling. Fighting's fighting.
Yeah.
MMA is not fighting, but it's the closest thing to fighting. Get, right. So these styles, these creations, these martial arts that we created, they're all artificial. They don't exist outside of someone's head.
Rules.
They're right. They just some dude made it up. Fighting's fighting.
You ever watch bum fights?
I watch bum fights all the time.
You do. No, you don't.
I do. Yeah. Because, you want to see what untrained guys do.
Yeah.
You want to see what their reactions are. I watch a lot of bare knuckle boxing. I watch a lot of street fights, bum fights.
Remember Kimbo?
Yeah.
That's
what you mean by bum fights?
I mean
actually
the real bum fights.
I watch.
I used to watch the Kimbo videos on YouTube, and he would just.
You see the one where he knocked the guy's eye out?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was gross.
And then when he came into MMA, it didn't work for some reason.
Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah. And it's not like Kimbo wasn't a bad boxer. It's just that's all he was.
Well, he was fighting scrubs.
He was fighting scrubs. And though who came up through Kimbo's thing, who's actually really freaking good? Jorge Masvidal. So there's some guys that came up through that same Florida like bum fight ring, but they're really freaking good. But you know what they did? They evolved. They grew. You know, and what Kimbo didn't was he didn't evolve. He didn't grow, especially when it came to grappling and things like that.
Too many steroids too.
Too many steroids. Rest in peace, Kimbo.
Rest in peace. Maybe that's a good place to leave it for the day.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of big fights to look forward to in December. December's right around the corner.
Yes.
And
Matt, we have not solidified what the rules are for the next bet.
I don't want to bet anymore.
No, come on.
My mom says I can't do it.
Your mom said really? Your mom said you can't do it?
No, but she says she won't listen to the show because all you do is hurt me.
Really? She said that?
She did. And I said,
I'm sorry,
Mom,
Mrs.
I
Peters.
lose the bet.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Peters. Don't worry, he's not permanently damaged.
No, just emotionally. Scarred.
Emotionally? Did she listen to the one where I shocked you?
I showed her the video and she wouldn't listen to it.
But you shocked me more than I shocked you.
Yeah. The next big one, I think we both agree that Ortega. We both going Ortega.
Okay, so you're gonna go Ortega. Okay, for the purpose of bet, I'll take Holloway, but I think Ortega's gonna win. But for purpose of bet, I'll take Holloway. But you know what? It's a close fight because Holloway is a freaking scrapper.
He's amazing,
He's a scrapper. That guy is something else.
I think Brian Ortega is just on another level.
Yeah, and talk about an evolution of a fighter. When Brian Ortega first started, his striking was not that good. And look at him now. The guy could go in a boxing match, straight boxing, and do really well. That's how good he is. He's really freaking good. And that whoever he hired, I see his boxing trainer on the Fight Pass type stuff, the videos. I don't know his name, but that guy is a great trainer. That guy is really good. In every single fight, Ortega's growing and growing and growing. The one thing I haven't seen as much as I would like to see is his takedown ability. I don't see him going for takedown as much as I'd like to see him.
Doesn't need to. He's amazing.
He doesn't need to. Right. Not yet. But eventually he will.
All right. So how about this? We whoever wins gets to punch the other person in the arm.
Done.
I've never felt your punch yet.
Yeah, but I'm going to lose this one because you took Ortega.
Well, I'm a weak puncher, so you're going to win. Well, want to do a double bet on Shevchenko and Djurjic? Oh, no. No knuckle punch. No knuckle punch.
What are you talking about? You can't knuckle punch. You said punch.
There's rules.
No, there are no rules.
This is not MMA. This is a podcast. All right.
Punch. Yeah. But when I was a kid, my best friends and I, we used to have this called a punch game. So we just get bored. This is what bored teenagers do. We'd roll dice, and whoever lost this guy, everybody had to punch this guy.
Oh my god! Before the internet, gentlemen.
I know, right?
Count your lucky stars. Although now we use an app to roll dice instead.
Right. All right. So you got Ortega, and I'll take Shevchenko Djurjic. I'm gonna take Shevchenko.
Oh, I was gonna take Djurjic anyways.
Well, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna take Shevchenko. She's
looking for blood.
I actually think it's too close to call. I think Joanna could really take it. But
you think it'll go all the way?
Yeah, it'll go all the way because neither of them have striking finishers. Yeah. I think Shevchenko did beat her once before in Muay Thai, in European Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And she's got a little bit of a maybe advantage because
does she have a reach advantage too?
Yeah, a little bit. And also, I think what happens is like, again, we talked about this, the scoring. Like, how do you score kicks versus how do you score punches? And Joanna's like counter kicker a little bit. So she, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I would say Shevchenko. I would say Shevchenko on this one. I'm leaning softly to Shevchenko. And while I'll take Holloway, I'm leaning softly to Ortega. But it's a fight, man. Holloway will be there.
Cool. All right. We'll see what happens this weekend. And then I'm going to punch Rene on Monday.
We'll see.
Or he's going to punch me. Thanks for
No,
listening.
not this. But it's 2 weeks away.
Oh, yeah. It's not this weekend.
Yeah.
This weekend is somebody else.
Yeah.
All right.
This is the Ultimate Fighter finale.
Yeah, which nobody's going to watch.
I'll watch it.
You'll watch it. All right. Let us know how it goes.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next
I'm
week?
still going to punch you anyways.
You going to punch me? Okay.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Marshall_Culture and on Instagram at MarshallCultureCast. Please leave a review on iTunes, and we'll see you next time on the Marshall Culture Podcast.